It's one thing to get outplayed. That happens sometimes. But to get outworked, out-hustled, and out-efforted, cannot stand for that.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Tuesday, February 11th, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, and you're joining me at the place to get your Carolina content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making us your first listen or watch today to get your day going on hopefully a better way than it ended last night on Monday, because woof, we're going through it right now. Special shout out to all the everydayers joining us, and of course, all our great Locked On Tar Heels insiders and all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord family. Those noises and more is where we're all at, and that's where we're going today. If you want more on that, make sure to check out Monday night's live postcast reaction show, where we did go a little bit more in depth on some other things that we won't get into in the show today, like Ian Jackson's continued struggles. Elliot, Cadeau's, yes, the turnovers, we'll talk more about that here, but just him not being a good teammate out there, the way he was being demonstrative to his teammates about his own turnovers. Can't have that. Anyway, all of that kind of stuff we hit yesterday, so make sure to check that out. If you're listening to this, you've seen it in your audio feed. If you're on YouTube, make sure you go find it. So what we're going to do today, though, is we're going to talk about other things. We're going to talk about what I said in the cold open, you're going to get outplayed sometimes, but to get outworked, man, we can't have that. We're going to talk about what's next. Are we dead? Is it done? Is it over? Are we just playing for respect at this point? And we'll have our Four Corners recap and the Shady stat of the game, all of that coming up. So first off, I got to admit, this hurts. I'm struggling, man. You know me, Isaac Schade, glass half full. We're doing it. But this is disappointing. I'm having a hard time with this. It's not easy for me to admit that, And as my friend Steve was texting me on Monday night, it's not even like I'm mad at this point. I think the word he used was defeated. You feeling that? I'm feeling it. And a lot of it specific to this Clemson loss, now where Carolina just drops another game. And this is a game that you had to have. And it's one thing to get outplayed, as I said in the cold open, because that's going to happen. Sometimes you have an off day, or sometimes you just run up against a better team. Fair enough. You're going to get those. But for that to be compounded, whether Clemson's a better team or not, I think they are from what we've seen, to also get out-hustled, to get outworked, to get out-toughed. There was a time when Jalen Washington just got the ball ripped away from him. Things like that. To get out-efforted. You just simply cannot have that. Coach Davis, post-game, said, quote, "They played tonight hungry in every aspect of the game, and I thought that was the deciding factor." And that is mind-boggling to me where things are at right now, because the problem for me, in a game where you are fighting for your tournament life, this potentially is the dagger in the coffin. We'll talk more about it later, but at least you know that if there's a wall, it's not that your back's up against it. It's that you're shoved up into the thick of the wall. That's where you're at. And the problem is what Coach Davis said, they played tonight hungry in every aspect of the game. That should have been said about the Tar Heels, that they wanted it infinitely and exponentially more than Clemson. And maybe that still can't overcome them being a better and more talented team. Sure. Than them just outplaying you. Sure. Fine. But if it can be said of a team that's coming off an emotional win over Duke, that you can't out effort them. And your coach says that about the opposition and not about you. That is a clear sign that the Tar Heels didn't understand the desperation enough. They didn't feel it enough. They didn't recognize the depth of this moment and just how dire things are. Here's the truth. It was an encouraging first quarter of the game. The first 10 minutes, we don't play quarters, we play halves in men's basketball, but the first 10 minutes is the first quarter. With 9:15 to go, so a little more than the first quarter, Carolina's up 23-21 off a beautiful step back three from RJ Davis. And at that point, I don't know where your head was at, but I'm thinking, okay, this is what you got to do. You got to come out and just trade blows. Carolina had just committed a few mental mistakes that were frustrating to me. Some of those little things that the Tar Heels have done this year that has been not good for them. But Carolina's leading by 2. And I'm like, all right, this is what you want. Hang around, keep connected, and you never know what might happen at the end of the game. But then, from that moment, when Carolina's up 23-21 with 9:15 to go, Clemson goes on a 14-2 run in like 2.5 minutes. By the time the half is all said and done, Clemson has gone on a 28-10 run to turn a 23-21 Carolina lead into a 49-33 Clemson lead at the half. As part of that, Carolina was mired in an over 4-minute slump at the end of the half. They had another over 4-minute slump in the second half, and they never got closer than 14 the rest of the game. So what happened? Well, Coach Davis said every effort, physicality part about the game from that stretch, specific to that last half of the first half, he said they dominated. And this is exactly what I was talking about on Monday's show, referencing back to the Pitt game. I said, I loved Carolina's scrappiness at the end of that Pitt game. But you know what? Where was it in the earlier parts of the game? And that's exactly what Coach Davis is talking about, man. It's the same issue, different day. But against a better team, like against Pitt, you were able to survive it because they're not as good as Clemson. They're a good team. They're not as good as Clemson, which, by the way, I saw that Damian Dunn fractured his elbow. You know how he had to leave? Man, that stinks. Thoughts to Damian Dunn for that. But same issue here today on Monday at least, but against a better team. So you paid dearly for not having the level of physicality, toughness, effort, whatever it is you want to call it. The Tar Heels didn't have it after the first quarter. Coach Davis said, we didn't respond today with the type of competitive fight that you have in order to have a chance to win a game like this. Why? Why is that not there? What is it that doesn't translate where you don't have the competitive juices you need to fight for your tournament life? That is befuddling to me. Consequently, Carolina loses this basketball game by 20 points, 85-65. It's the first time Carolina has lost by 20 or more since losing to Duke by 20 in Coach Davis's first year, the first game against Duke, the one that was at Carolina before the Tar Heels got payback at Cameron to end the regular season. And Carolina lost by 24 times that year. So it's not that this year. But I mean, it's been that long since it happened. And you might have heard, you might have read, but I went back and looked in the record book. This is tied for the largest loss ever to Clemson, with a game that Clemson won 93-73 back in the 1976-77 season, almost 50 years ago. What? Man, it's befuddling. Here's a stat example of that. The rebounding. I talked about it on Monday's show. Carolina is a better, by the numbers at least, Carolina is a better rebounding team than Clemson is. But they did not show it in this game. Carolina has out-rebounded teams taller and bigger than Clemson. But you know what I realized as I dug deeper into this? Clemson won the rebounding battle 41-28. That's plus 13 for Clemson or minus 13 for Carolina. That is tied for the biggest rebounding deficit the Tar Heels have had this entire season. Oddly enough, the other time was Hawaii, who out-rebounded Carolina 40-27. Now, the Tar Heels on the season, their rebounding margin is under +1. It's plus 0.93. You can rebound. I don't care if you're small, man. Box out like your tail is on fire and like that ball is the most precious jewel this world has ever seen. Whatever it takes, whatever you got to put in your head, that's what you got to do. But it's what Carolina didn't do. So again, I get it. We get outplayed in sports sometimes, whether it's basketball or hockey or football or baseball, whatever it is. That's part of sports. But again, I cannot sit by while this team is in dire straits, backs against the wall, tournament life on the line, and you don't have the effort to do it. Well, we got to get to our Four Corners recap. We're going to start with something happy because Isaac is down right now, as you can hear, and we need to bring Isaac up. And it just makes me so happy to see RJ playing and shooting better, or at least shooting better. He's played well. He's fought all along, but he's shooting better now, and that makes me happy. So that's where we're going next. Stay tuned. But first, I need to tell you about our good friends at Wayfair. You know, the holiday hustle, this is a couple months behind us now, but I'm honestly still trying to get the house back in order. It just takes a while. I'm slow. I like to keep the Christmas stuff up. But when you do, when you put it all away and you redo everything, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always find that decluttering and refreshing my space, man, that helps me get back into a routine. I don't know about you, but I need that routine in my life. So whether you're tidying up, whether you're clearing out, or you just want to give your space a new look to start the year, Wayfair has got everything you need and all within your budget. And I'm not joking about that, man. They do a great job with these prices. I'm currently looking for some furniture, want to try some things, and Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find pieces that fit my style, your style, budget, whatever it is. And my favorite part is that not only do they have free shipping and delivery, but it's hassle-free. That's even better, even for the large items. Wayfair's site is really easy to navigate, and you can find everything you need in no time. There's something for every home, every style, no matter your space or budget. So give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head over to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Four Corners recap. Let's start on a happy note. RJ Davis stays hot. 8 of 14 in this game overall. 2 of 5 from 3. Curiously, no free throws. Didn't get to the line. All right. There was multiple. There was one play. This is not on RJ. But where Elliot Cadeau got shoved to the ground 2 different times on the same play. No call. All right. Anyway, RJ, over the last 7 games, I've been tracking this. At first, it was like, oh, RJ's got a 4-game streak going. Oh, 5, 6, 7, where he's just been putting together better shooting performances. And man, you remember how early in the year it was like RJ would shoot it and it's RJ, so it's going in, but it didn't? That's all flipped. And now it's like, RJ's doing RJ. In the last 7 games, he is shooting from the field 48.4% in total, like all his shots, just shy of 50%, 44 of 91. On the season, he's got his season field goal average up over 40. It's at 40.7%. In those 7 games, he is shooting over 50% from 2, 26 of 50. That's 52% in the last 7 games from 2 for RJ Davis. And from 3. He shot in this game 2 of 5. That's 40%, which actually brought his 7-game average down a little bit because he was at 44.4%. But still, shooting 18 of 41 from 3 in the last 7 games. That's 43.9%. And that season average is slowly creeping up just shy of 32%, now 31.9. It's never going to be able to get back up to 40 just because of the slow start. But to get this high back up is so impressive to me. Well done, RJ. And no free throws, but again, 20 of 22 in the last 7 games, 90.9%. Really, really encouraging stuff. Just need other guys to do it. Need other guys to join RJ and help shoulder some of that shooting load. Another kind of yay, happy thing, but all right, it's fine. It doesn't ultimately matter because you lost the game. But a couple statistical areas that Carolina did lead is they led in turnovers, which is a nice thing. Although that said, Carolina still had too many. We'll talk more about that. But they led critically in points off turnovers a little bit convincingly, especially given how tight the turnovers were. I think it was 15 for Clemson, 13 for Carolina. But Carolina had 22 points to Clemson's 15 points off of turnovers. Carolina also led, and this was shocking to me, points in the paint, 40 to 34. Maybe some of that is because Clemson was just bombing. I mean, bombing away from three and didn't really need to go inside that much. That could very well be the factor there. And then Carolina also led fast break points. Not surprising. Clemson is a slower and more deliberate team. And with those, all those turnovers they committed, Carolina was able to get out and run a little bit. So Carolina wins the fast break points battle 18-11. Now, here's what's interesting about that. 18 of Carolina's total 65 points translates to 27.7% of their total points were off of fast breaks. Here's the weird thing. That is the highest percentage all season long against one of the slowest paced teams Carolina is going to face all season long. The next closest was 25.4% of their points were fast break points against NC State. It's also funny and kind of ironic because the previous game, Carolina had just 5 fast break points against Pitt, which was the lowest total of the entire season. So sports, man, I love how math gives us the bonkersness, right? So anyway, interesting to see Carolina lead a couple statistical categories, but because of things like, again, Clemson's 3-point shooting, it's just hard to offset that. They were on fire. Carolina was not. And there you go. Number 3 in our Four Corners recap is free throws attempted. Been tracking this. I've been tracking it. And so I want to continue to share it with you. First 16 games of the season, Carolina averaged 24.25 free throw attempts per game. That's really good. Being up over 20, closer even to 25 than 20. Not just live with that, like love it. In the last 9 games since then, and the average has dropped because Carolina didn't get a ton of attempts again in this game. In the last 9 games now, Carolina's average is 15.2 free throw attempts a game. So basically you're down a little over 9 free throw attempts a game in the last 9. And again, for a team that makes a lot of its living at the free throw line, that's not good enough. Neither is the fact that that's just the attempts. Carolina has not been good in either of the last 2 games from the free throw line. In this game against Clemson, Carolina was just 5 of 11. I don't know what to do with that. It's so bad. And against Pitt the other day, Carolina was 8 of 15. So you combine that, 5 and 8 is 13, 15, 13 of 26, 50% from the free throw line in the last 2 games. That's not going to cut it. As Adam Lucas pointed out post-game, kind of another angle on how bad it's been. In the first 13 games of the season, Carolina attempted more free throws than their opponent 9 times. In the past 12 games, so basically cutting the season in half, for 8 of those 12 games, the opponent has taken more free throws than the Tar Heels. That's very interesting to me and is a sign that Carolina either has lost their way or can't get to their way because they're not able to get to the free throw line or, a tighter whistle in ACC play. I don't know what it is, but the Tar Heels just aren't doing what they need to at the free throw line, either getting there or once they do. Sometimes you say to a team, hey, they don't get there very often, but when they do, man, they are money. That's not Carolina right now at all. 50% in the last 2 games from the free throw line. That doesn't do it. And then 4th in our Four Corners recap is turnovers. Really good job. Remember on Saturday, Carolina committed just 6 turnovers against Pitt. But on Monday night, they committed 13 turnovers. 6 of those, so just shy of half, go to Elliot Cadeau. And then I think RJ had 3 of them, maybe 3. So 9 of the 13 turnovers were a combo of RJ Davis and Elliot Cadeau. With then 1, nobody else had more than 1. Seth Trimble had 1, Van Allen had 1, Jay Witt had 1, and Ian had 1. So, got to do better. The point guards, the guards, it's got to be taken care of. Both Ian and RJ had negative assisted turnover ratios in this game. So that means now, because going back to the Duke game and the first Pitt game, Carolina had 14 turnovers in each of those, meaning that in the last 4 games, Carolina has committed 13 or more turnovers in 3 of them. Unsettling. And Elliot himself, broader than just this game, it's gotten bad. I don't think I had realized how much it had mounted up, but I went back and looked at his game logs. Elliot has 6 straight games in which he's committed 3 or more turnovers. 9 of the last 10 games, he's committed 3 or more turnovers. 9 of the last 10. That's tough. Last year, the most turnovers he committed in a single game was 5. Has had 6 or more 3 times now this season. 2 6s and a 7. In totality for the year, Carolina's played 25 games. Elliot has 3 or more turnovers in 17 of those 25 games. I mean, if you're getting 25 assists with that, okay, I can live with 3. It's not good enough. So anyway, we've still got to get to our shady stat of the game. We're going to be looking at Clemson's 3-point shooting and Carolina's 3-point shooting in this game. And then I want to try to figure out, okay, so what's happening now? Where do we go from here? Are we done? Are we cooked? Or is there still hope? We'll get to all that coming up in just a second. Time for the shady stat of the game. By the way, I didn't say, but with it being a game recap day, I didn't do a Tuesday trivia for us. Apologies. Maybe we'll do a Wednesday Rivia or something like that. But anyway, shady stat of the game. We talked about this in the live postcast show, but wanted to bring it up in a couple different angles on it than we talked about there, now that I've just had time to process the numbers a little bit more. Clemson came into the game 15th nationally, shooting 38% from 3. As we said, Carolina shot 50% in the first half. Way to go. But they still trailed by 16 because of the 3-point discrepancy, where Clemson made 8 in the first half and Carolina made just 2. What I want to talk about, and the thing that's different, is this. I went back, I was just talking about Elliot Cadeau's game logs on turnovers. I went back and looked at Carolina's game logs on 3-point shooting because it's not been great this year. And what I realized is this. Because I track shooting breakdowns by half. Like I see the shooting percentages by half. I got a whole chart with all this. In the last 9 games, Carolina has made more than 3 threes one time. They made a bunch against somebody in the last 9 games. But in the 8 other games of the last 9, Carolina has made 3 or fewer threes in the first half. I mean, in this day and age of basketball, you're not going to win a lot of games doing that. It's just the fact of the matter. You got to be able to hit more. And of course, Clemson, meanwhile, hit 8 in that first 20. 8 in the first 20 minutes. Most games, the Tar Heels aren't getting to 8 in the entire game. And that was the case in this one, where they had less than half of that. They had 4. And by the way, as a reminder, Clemson finished with 12 on 25 attempts. It's not good. It's not good. Carolina's got to be able to shoot better, or they will never dig themselves out of this hole. So that's where we turn now. Where do we go from here? Are the Tar Heels done? Are we just playing for pride and respect at this point, or are we still playing for something? I appreciate Coach Davis and his thoughts on this and how to keep things going. But I want to recognize that on yesterday's show, I talked about this Clemson game, as the most critical game remaining on Carolina's regular season schedule. I talked about the stretch from the tip-off of Pitt to the wrap-up of the Clemson game as probably the most critical 53-hour stretch of the season. Why? Because if you win those 2 games, despite all the struggles earlier, as long as you can hold serve in the next 6 games ahead of the Duke game, it might not even matter what happens against Duke. You might already be in. But that did not happen. Carolina lost this game in an astounding fashion, quite frankly. Here's what Coach Davis said post-game. Quote, "We've got to keep getting back up and keep competing. We got knocked down today, but we've got to get back up and we got to move forward. And we've got to competitively fight." And I think that's a good mix of things, because his job now, yes, they got to go watch film and they got to say, you see that? Better effort. You see that? I need more. Whatever those things are. But as a coach, he's got to help them now turn the corner, because all is, in my opinion, not dead and done and gone and lost. It might now take beating Duke in that regular season finale to get in. But unless you win this next stretch of 6 games leading up to that, which I'll tell you what those are here in just a second, then it's moot point, and it doesn't matter what you do against Duke. At that point, it's just beating Duke to beat Duke because it's Duke. And that's why this is such a hard loss to take, because you don't know now. Now it's kind of out. You know how, like, as you're trying to clinch in baseball, you talk about like you're in control of your own destiny because you're ahead. I don't think the Tar Heels are in control of their own destiny in terms of making the NCAA tournament. I think they gave that away. This was their last big shot at it. But again, if you win these next 6 and you beat Duke, you might be in good shape. You might just play yourself in as others play themselves out. But I do appreciate Coach Davis's message to say, there is hope. So let's get back up and keep going. And I love that he called it, we've got to competitively fight. Because it's one thing to feel like you're fighting, but I don't think, again, going back to our first segment, I don't think these Tar Heels know how hard they got to fight for what they want. They got to competitively fight, not just game to game, but possession to possession, rep in practice after rep in practice after rep in practice, weight room reps, conditioning reps, whatever it is, getting to bed on time, eating the right stuff, all of that matters. And Carolina has to get up and competitively fight. So what's next then? We're going to look ahead long-term and to Saturday, but Coach Davis says, quote, the only work that needs to be done is preparation for our game on Saturday. What is in front of you is our next game, and our next game is Saturday at Syracuse, and that game deserves and will get our full attention. I like that, because that's the next game in front of us. After that, we'll move on to the next game, and that's always been my communication with the team, and that'll be my communication with the team moving forward, end quote. I also like that, because all Carolina can control right now is the 6 games we're talking about, the Duke game, scrap that. Right now, laser focus on Syracuse. What does Red Autry bring into the table? How do you compete with Eddie Lampkin, who is a massive dude in the post? We're talking like DJ Burnsy here. So I love that, and I appreciate that from Coach Davis. And he's got to publicly say that to his team and to us. But internally, you've got to know that he's thinking like, all right, if we get this one, where are we at, right? There's some level to that, and that's what we're looking at. So as part of this, I want to say 2 final things, that those 6 games, because while Coach won't look ahead, and he should, I'm going to. So Saturday at Syracuse. And as you go into that game, let me remind you that the Tar Heels have lost 5 of their last 7 and 4 straight road games. Got to break that streak. Then next Wednesday, the Tar Heels host NC State. Then next Saturday, they host Virginia. Then they're at Florida State, hosting Miami, and at Virginia Tech. Now, here's what you need to know about these 6 games and why I keep lumping them together. Florida State right now is 79th at KenPom. All of the other 5 teams are outside the top 100. Carolina's just gone through a stretch of playing teams that are top 40 at KenPom. So this should be different. But again, when you take it as a group of 6, as Coach Davis was talking about, that doesn't help. So Syracuse, that's it for right now for the team. But you look at this, those are all possibilities. And that's it. And when you finish that stretch, when you finish the at Virginia Tech, Duke is next up. So in order to make that game matter now, you got to fight like the Dickens in these next 6, and it starts Saturday. And here's something, I'm just going to keep hammering this home. I feel like you cannot, if you're the coaching staff, cannot continue to abide by the status quo. Carolina has to change tactics. One of the things we saw that I loved against Clemson is Carolina was pretty successful with their pressure. Now, the more you use it, the more diluted it becomes, meaning the opponent is going to get a little more used to it. They're going to get baskets sometimes. Like, that's the fact of the matter. And sometimes easier baskets than they would otherwise. But if you can continue to get steals at the rate like what Carolina was doing Monday night, you might just find yourself able to muck it up just enough. I mean, Carolina basically has to find some ways to play junk defense or junk offense because they can't win heads up, man on man, whatever you want to call it, right? So they got to think outside the box here. And again, it's not going to work every time. You're going to give up buckets, but maybe utilizing that pressure is a way to leverage Carolina's strength that they have. Because again, their best 5 don't involve a front court player at all. And as I've said, you've heard me say this a lot this season. At this point, what's the worst that could happen? You lose again? Already there, Like, so try stuff. Get outside the box. We'll look at that. All right, guys, that's it for today. We're going to be back tomorrow. I believe it's just me, and then the hope is Coach Kilby on the Thursday show and Coach Rob on the Friday. So that's what I'm looking ahead to anyway, and we'll see what happens with all that. All right, gang. If you haven't subscribed to the show on video, go ahead and do it. Lock in, man. 7 more regular season games. Let's do this all together. Keep building this community, even when it's tough. It's like we need each other right now, right? And this is a great place to need each other. If you haven't subscribed to the show, PS, on YouTube, go ahead and do that. If you haven't subscribed on audio, do that, whatever your preferred method is. But if you haven't subscribed on YouTube, do it right now to help us, if you would. If you've not joined the Locked On Tar Heels Insiders to go deep with the show, direct contact with me, do that. That link's in the show notes. Or if you want to join the Locked On Tar Heels Discord family, that link is in the show notes as well. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We will talk again tomorrow, but until then, peace.